I think it was Lao Tzu who asked, "Is it not the space in the clay pot that's most useful?" And most people in life want to be a clay pot. But I agree with Lao Tzu. The clay pot is disposable. It is the space within it that's most functional and timeless. I used to think this was just some idea, but now I think it's more literal. In a way, I hope to be the servant of the space. Well, anyway, thanks for being here. God bless and welcome. I don't know, sometimes one video leads into another, and I'm just fact-checking myself, and it leads into a whole exploration. How could I not share? Everything is overdue. Sometimes I just lack the inspiration, and this one photo has provided the inspiration. We'll talk about this in a minute. What led me to this is this video that I'm working on right now. And I was talking about how the bricks at Lowe's were 48 cents and they're now out of stock. I should see when the last review was. And then I saw this picture up here that I took at the Sunnyside Coke ovens. And I just threw it in here into the timeline. And then I got curious and started researching this brick or the manufacturer. There's millions of these bricks out here. And it looks like it says Yo with a Y, kind of like dough. And then maybe this FB something, FB3 or I'm not sure. So anyway, I thought the company might be called Yo. And it led me to this website. In Pennsylvania, I believe they're calling these kilns. They're saying the bricks came from this brick making facility. And I was scrolling through and really didn't find what I was looking for, but this was pretty interesting. This was worth discussing. Now, I've seen hundreds of these so-called ruins of facilities in the 1800s by now. This has all the signs. And I just want to ask, does it make sense that anyone would build under this stone? Or is this stone something that was originally part of the structure, either more brick or metals or different building materials, but quite possibly just brick, the same brick, now completely melted and fusing into the structure? Otherwise, I see no good reason to come down here and build this beautiful brick in between the rocks like this. You see trees growing out of it here. And you can even see the brick lines running into the melted brick lines. Here, and here. It's not letting me zoom, but you see my point. And this was the website, and they're calling that the Keir Fire Brick Company, from the Stewart Fire Brick Company. Very active since 1845. Only a concrete pad remains today at the location. And here we see the Yo Guinea River Valley and essentially the ruins of this factory. This is either a share from Benjamin or Stefan, or both. Thank you for this. Here we can see a star fort in Prague, and we see the greater impression in all the castles and quite possibly the plug holes within and without. And it should be clear by now that any star fort is foundational, similar to what we see exposed in Malta, what we see at the base of the Statue of Liberty and all the surrounding islands. And all of it goes underground and often under the water, as it was formed before the waters, I believe. And just ruins, absolute ruins, wall here, wall there, cooked out, and yet we see much preservation, beautiful preservation in fact, like this, just randomly up here. And it looks like it's been rebuilt many times over the course of 1,000 years. Here we can see some of those buildings in the background, and just how massive this thing is compared to these cars And as if it wasn't enough, some giant piece of art here, like some facading. I mean, huge and just unnecessary, unless you have the ability to do anything you want. Money is no object. And all these windows, possibly an afterthought. People probably moved into this wall, punched these out for fresh air and light. I mean, the wall is like an apartment complex full of amenities. Here we have a tennis court, of course an afterthought, very important. Who is privileged to play tennis down here? And a sport similar to golf or amphitheaters. And here it is. We can see the impression of the star here. And really, unless it's pointed out to you, I don't think people notice these. Really. Very suspicious park here. A mind-blowing cathedral. And a few different elements here with the spires. This section reminding me of the builders of the Cologne Cathedral. Super techy. This is something I wanted to share for a while. A channel called Our Melted Reality went out here. It's called the Bangor Cave or Three Caves. And I should show you his video. I think that the cave systems are one of the biggest smoking. When we go inside them, they're full of bricks. And I think when people realize that there's a realm under ours, they might begin to take notice of this research. And it seems with technology growing and the ability to share information, more and more just keeps being revealed, often by people who are not even looking for this type of research. So here we can see an old city in 1901, Oklahoma. Here we go, Old Westy, tents, great depiction of the Old West. Why it strikes us as so unusual when we see these beautiful buildings as we recently explored in Portland, Oregon. And then when we see a picture like this, everyone's standing around like they just got off the train, they don't know what to do. Oh, go to the tent and get some food. Maybe you can rent a tent. I mean, how luxurious is this building when you have tents everywhere? And anyway, beneath Lake Altus, Lugert in southwest Oklahoma, an entire town once thrived below what appears to be a seemingly normal lake. Here we go, all shocked. The town disappeared when a dam was built in the 40s, and most people had no idea this underwater city exists. And mind you, this was written in 2021, very recent. And similar to the great fires of every city in the world, there were also dams built everywhere that flooded towns. Strangely, people don't even know about them until 75 years later in some cases. So here's what the area looks like, really quaint. And then we start to see piles of bricks near the surface of the lake. Again, you remember the Old West picture up there. While these people are playing Little House on the Prairie, there's a brick city buried in this early time period. And it's not just a brick city. It's a concrete, stone and brick city. As we can see here, this polygonal work looks so perfect. It looks stamped. And since everything else looks like concrete, I'm gonna guess that it is just a slab of concrete that's been stamped. Something that should not have been done in a very early time period. This is the remains of a cellar from a 2-story schoolhouse. No doubt they pillaged all the bricks on top of the schoolhouse, left what they couldn't move. Sidewalks that lead to nowhere. Excellent quality concrete that's been sitting underwater. And here we see some more ruins, some more what seems like polygonal stamping of concrete. Bunch of sand. Looks like we're in the Middle East, but we're in Oklahoma. Here's a train station in Richmond, Virginia. It was built in 1901. That's it. It was built in a year. And you really don't need the top half of this building for a train station. You don't need this tech, super tech, or all of these windows. Like some king is about to stroll out and address his people. Okay, I want to apologize for the randomness of this video. If you don't know, on this channel, I think there was a reset. Many of them. As I mentioned earlier, maybe in another video, blossoming like a lotus. The reset seems to reset civilization as we know it. Further back you go, the more advanced these civilizations seem to have been. Books survive, even survive the great burnings, but the masses are pretty unaware. And where do the masses come from after a reset? In my opinion, they are manufacturing the civilizations. I'm sure they are manufacturing people right now. And as always, the technology that we realize is cutting edge for today is actually the technology of the past. As the old saying goes, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything has been done and said. Similar to breeding mills for dogs, or any animal for that matter, all a type of mill. They repopulate, re-educate, and pretty soon, like a melting pot, everything comes together. Accents begin to fade. And how about hydrogen? Could they have been manufacturing hydrogen in the old world? I think so. We've discussed how the star forts look like power plants. A lot of the buildings, even the cathedrals, look like some kind of tech. Something producing a lot of something. And to me, hydrogen is a possibility. The organs, their pipes, the rivers that all these structures are not far from. One thing that makes me sick in this world is big oil and the evils they have perpetuated, their monopoly, and enslaving the population with something that they think we can't do without. Now, when you have no choice, you can't do without something. Right now in Brazil, you have the choice of petrogasoline or sugarcane gasoline. They essentially make gas out of sugarcane. Gas or gasoline is simply alcohol. It's a distillation of a carbonous matter. And you don't have to drill into the earth to find carbonous matter. You could use sugarcane, or you could use cattails, or recycled wood, or grass. You can make alcohol out of anything. And it was part of the philosophy of Henry Ford that the American people should be able to grow their own fuel, run them off of alcohol. And electric cars are fine, but if you're just plugging them into conventional utilities, you really haven't advanced. But how about water? How about if we could just run things off of water? How old is this technology? It seems like until I started researching things for myself, when I thought of hydrogen, I thought of a bomb. And here this guy, Mike Copeland of Arlington Performance, worked for General Motors for 25 years. He's created the world's first functional hydrogen-powered Chevrolet LS that's passed EPA testing. Of course, it just burns water. What's cool is he's utilized a conventional motor, so it has the sound of an exploding piston motor, but the explosion is created using a water-powered reaction. The truck sounds and drives exactly like a conventional gasoline motor. And here we can see the tank. That's his gas tank. It has hydrogen, which are gases that came from water. And a lot of the antiquitech in the old world, even if producing a small current, could have made hydrogen. And hydrogen can now be distributed, light lamps, heat homes, and power vehicles. Often in my neighborhood, I'll see a big oil location spring up. They'll have a bunch of domes, like we see on old world buildings. And they're simply recapturing the gas in these tanks. I encourage you to watch this if you're interested. He explains everything. He's working with the company Bosch. They make tools and spark plugs and all kinds of parts. And this is a reality today. This will upset a lot of people in the current industry. And if we're not living free today, it's by design. We have everything we need to support the population. And when they discovered this technology, what did they use it for? Something destructive rather than beneficial. At the same time, they would push us into big oil and use this technology in a malevolent way. They call these fission weapons. We often wonder why everything looks melted all throughout the realm. One of these fission reactions can create temperatures exceeding 100 million degrees. 100 million degrees. There you go. How would a brick fare in 100 million degree temperature? Not very well. I think it would look like this cooked out realm. But anyway, this led me into a rabbit hole, and pretty soon I found this Operation Castle. I thought, how interesting. I think they're not very creative sometimes. Operation Castle was a series of tests at Bikini Atoll. One test in particular was called Castle Bravo. It ended up cooking some nearby inhabitants and US soldiers, as well as Japanese fishing boats. And I've discussed it in past videos. We were talking about the tests in the Nevada desert, and that's what brought me out here. Let's zoom out and show you where we are. We have Australia down here, Hawaii over here, which has recently unnaturally caught fire. Over here, Japan. And right in the middle here, where you would think there would be some action, we have these Marshall Islands. And this is where they performed these tests for this Operation Castle in the 50s. Very important to come out here and cook this area. And I was exploring the cooking and found these islands to be really, really interesting, actually. Kind of like having a perimeter, maybe a star fort shape, but having nothing visible in the center. Now this looks like it's been fudged with, really, really altered, but actually very shallow water. And last night I was zooming into some of these islands and I could see roads. Here you can see a road, a little cul-de-sac. This road goes into the water and pops back out here. And here we can see a little trace of habitation here as well. We see some remains, and here they show a road, but there's no road here. And in fact, I found a whole city on one of these. Here's another little mini town, just totally cooked out. And a lot of these had domes. In fact, even here we see some domage. Here's a dome. Here's what seems like it may have been a fountain at one point, a plug hole, and a town center with larger buildings around this park, now totally cooked out, and all kinds of remains. They did tell us some of the inhabitants on an island were wiped out, but this, way out here, who's ever heard of this? And in fact, I didn't get into it, but the history behind these Marshall Islands was very interesting. First, it was occupied by the Germans, and then by the Japanese, and then by the Americans, and now it's the nation of the Marshall Islands. So a lot more needs to be looked into. But for today, I just wanted to touch on this subject. This is completely mind-boggling, and I think that this center part is completely being blotched out, and what we do see is the remains of civilization out here. It was very eerie, actually. Every single one of these islands had a little hospital on it. Some of the cities appear to be occupied, like this one, but I'm really not sure. Here we go. A Japanese World War II building, and it's in absolute ruins. Are you seeing that? I'll have to zoom in and crop in a little closer, but no, this is totally cooked out as well. So just a real rabbit hole that started out with a hydrogen vehicle. Here we see a hospital with no paths. I mean, if a helicopter ever landed here, nobody ever went to this hospital. There's no path. Here we see the shadow of a massive tower, the shadow, and then I'll show you another hospital just right down the way here. Here we go, another one. The Gillingham Hospital. Again, nobody's inhabiting this island. There's no paths, there's no roads. My dog and I do a lot of walking, and before long we create paths, even in the desert. And here you see a dome, and you see the shadow of the dome. So what is this? What is going on out here? Another hospital here, right below that one. The Omelek sounds like the Olmec, the old tribe with the helmets, found in Mexico. And again, no paths. So let me know your thoughts. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I love you all. God bless, and I'll see you next week.